Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Wayne.
Good evening.
Well, unfortunately, Viv is not feeling well today, so she won't be coming in.
Oh, no.
And, and then Dan buried his brother today. I think the funeral was.
Oh, dear.
So,
Well,
I'm sorry
thoughts are,
for
with,
him.
thoughts are with Dan and his family then for today.
Hey, Willow.
I'm just about ready to go to bed myself. I have been flat out all day. And I just had the biggest meltdown in this house I've ever known between my two daughters.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
One comes home from their mum's with a tub of ice cream. We said, don't eat it in front of Tamsin because she will want some.
Hmm.
And what did she do?
She ate in front of.
Little one came in, saw her with the tub of ice cream, and she goes, oh, no, you're not allowed to have any. Really sly and nasty to her. And that was it.
So, how old is your oldest?
My oldest is 14. That's Ethan.
Okay.
And then I've got Chloe, 11. Tamsin, who's just turned 6. And then Freddie, who's just going to be turning 4 in 15 days.
Oh, wow.
So just over 2 weeks.
Wow.
So, yeah. Quite a little group. I've got I've almost got a 5-a-side football team.
There you go. Hey, Ned.
But yeah, I hate having to deal with these meltdown situations.
Well, it's going to happen more and more.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Ethan, he keeps himself to himself because he's autistic. He's sort of like doesn't do confrontation.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really talk that much to people, so he tends to keep himself to himself.
Yeah.
Whereas Chloe is very outgoing and sort of speaks openly and does like to act the clown.
Mm.
Only problem is her attitude and her personality changes depending on who she's with or talking to.
Yeah.
I just said to her, I said, why is it sometimes you can be nice to Tamsin and play with Tamsin and draw and do various bits. I said, and then you get times like now where you've been really nasty to her. Know
really
full well that Tamsin's been ill the last couple of days.
Oh, no.
I mean, she was being sick all last night. So, you know, a bit of sympathy would have been better. But she was like, no, you're not having none of this.
No, William, there's no Vivian tonight. She's not feeling well.
No, I think this bug's going round. We seem to be having the bug going round in the UK at the moment. Everybody seems to be coming down with this cold and cough and sickness. So it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm stopping there. I'm not having any more kids. I can't be dealing with it. I got better things to do.
Yeah. But then if you have so many daughters, I noticed with my friend of mine, he has 5 daughters and 2 sons, and the daughters, when they hit a certain age, just go nuts. So
yeah. I mean, I think obviously being a parent, it's a learning curve, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you get to a certain stage with the first child, and you experience it for the first time. So that when you get to that stage with the second child, you sort of partly know what to expect. But the problem is when your first child's one sex and the second child's another sex,
Yeah.
that stage that they get to can be completely different in ratio with the other one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a boy getting to that stage will act in one way, and a girl getting to that age will act in a completely different way. So you're still completely stumped, and you're like,
Yeah.
but at least I'll get it twice. I'll get it twice. So when little Freddie gets to be in 14, I'll know sort of a little bit more about what's going on with him than I did with Ethan. So
Well, we hope so, at least.
yeah, still love them regardless.
Oh yeah, you got to.
You might want to throw them out the window and chuck a bucket of water over them. throw them about a bit, but you still love them. It's all
Hey,
fun.
Robert.
Evening, Robert.
I don't know where my camera is. So anything exciting happening in the big wild world of Wayne?
Too much.
Too much. Like what?
Too much. I'm still currently writing my 5th book, overdue. Although I noticed it the other day, it came up on my Facebook timeline that I actually originally wrote Overdue 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
Overdue originally came out in 2018 in its original format, and when I then started publishing 2 years ago, I thought to myself, I want to revisit some of the stories that I previously done for my Facebook group and my YouTube channel, and wanted to reinvent them. So it was just basically taking that original story and stretching it, by putting in extra chapters. And with this one, I have literally, I've literally stretched this one so much.
Really?
But what I've been able to do is I've been able to put in 3 chapters at the beginning of the story that I hadn't put in the original, and it sort of just built the scene a bit more. So there was more understanding when it came to the actual main story, and it sort of allowed the twist at the end to be a little bit more heartwarming, a bit more sad, and a bit more, oh, I didn't expect that.
Oh wow.
So
see, I have a hard time. I have a hard time writing because I can't think of. I can think of a storyline. I can think of the characters, but I can't express the feelings of the characters. That's what I had the problem.
I think for me, it's because I always loved watching films. You know, all sorts of films I've sort of watched throughout the years, and different types of films. I've never really stuck to one specific genre of films. I prefer horror, you know, like whether it's gory and ghosts and stuff like that. Sometimes it can be just the weirdest, bizarre twist of a ghost story with no blood and guts in, no jump scares or anything. A bit like The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe. I love the story of The Woman in Black. And that's got a few jump scares in it, but it's not really gory.
Yeah.
But it is a really good ghost story. And so to be able to look at that and go, well, I could do stories like that. And when I think about it, I'm like, a lot of the emotions and the sort of like the mannerisms that the character comes out with, you could look at yourself and say, well, if I was in this situation, I'd feel like this. So you could base that mannerism on how you would feel. And that comes through in some of my books. My book Lady J, about a group of guys that go to a beer festival. They find an abandoned building to go and stay in the night because it was getting late and they were all tired, and things start happening. And it was based on me and 4 of my friends. And it was all the things that happened and the way they talked to each other was how me and my friends used to talk to each other when we were at the pub.
Oh, wow.
So just using your own memory, I was able to actually sort of take that and go, oh, I can put that into this book, and I can have my friendship with Tony and the way we used to speak to each other. That would come through as quite comedic. So it'd be quite a bit of a comedy. So you get the comedy element in the story. But then you get me with my friend Michael. Michael was always quite the serious character and always looked at things as they were and took the serious side of things. And so you'd have a conversation with him, but it would be very serious all the time. And so you put that down on the paper and it comes through. So it works. So you can go by your own experiences to put down your characters' feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
And I like to think it works.
I don't know. I gotta get those books yet. I gotta read them. But
Yeah.
the ones that you read online or read on your show, I liked a lot.
Yeah, well, a lot of the ones that are on the Wayne Seaton Presents Spookanori Facebook group. They are the ones that I've published,
Hmm.
and so the ones what I've done is I serialized them. So I would do 2, maybe 3 chapters one week, and then another week 2 or 3 chapters. But now I've got to a stage where I've got a deadline to try and get over. I set myself deadlines.
Oh, you said yourself.
Other things happen, and next minute, that deadline's been and gone. And originally, I wanted Overdue to come out for Halloween, but since then, I've only managed to write another chapter because of other things that I've got going on.
Yeah, well, it happens.
Yeah, it does. And my poor son Ethan, he's got to have a hip replacement.
Oh no!
And so we've been backwards and forwards to the orthopedic hospital in London, which is like 50 miles away. Oh, Nicola. And so he's had to go backwards and forwards for tests and medication and blood tests again and x-rays and all sorts. And so, of course, my mind has been sort of more with that.
Yeah.
And then my littlest Freddie, he's now just recently been diagnosed with autism as well.
Really? Wow.
So now they're pointing the finger at me saying I need to get tested, but I'm like, but we know I've got it, but I've learned to deal with it, so I'm not really bothered.
Yeah.
But I then spoke to my mum about it, and she said, well, what's it going to prove? I said, that's not going to prove anything to anybody else, but it would be to me, because it would then, I would be able to turn around on people and say, I've been diagnosed.
Yep.
Because people could use that as an excuse every time.
Yeah.
So easy just to turn around and say, I'm autistic. But if somebody turns around and says, prove it, then you're stuck.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get labeled a liar. So I've always said, we think I'm autistic. But now they've turned around and said, because both of your sons are autistic, your father was autistic.
Yeah.
Your 2 nephews are autistic. All the male members of my family are autistic.
Oh, wow.
So it would make sense for me to be diagnosed. So,
yeah.
And it's all of those little things. But then what I tend to do is I enjoy helping other people. Now, whether it's in the paranormal field, going out with other teams, like I did the other week, I helped out a team up at Ruffin Control Tower in Bury St Edmunds called Ghouls Aloud.
Oh, wow.
Not as in the pop group, but they had an event on, and they were short of staff. And because I knew the owner of the group, she asked me if I would go up and help out and take a team out in the evening. So I very kindly went up there, grabbed the 3 people that were part of the team, and took them around just myself, and it's they really appreciate it, but it's something I enjoy doing. So I was quite happy to go up there and do it. And then it's things like Saturday Gone over at Church Farm in Skegness with Viv. We all headed towards the church farm in Skegness. We all had our fish and chips and our little Santa's lucky dip bag and things like that, and I had a really good time. It was just a shame it was really, really cold.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
None of the buildings we went in had heating in there. The main farmhouse had what was the remnants of a coal fire going. So there was a little bit of heat in that room, but the rest of the place was freezing cold. Wow. And all the other buildings, no heating in either. So it tended to be, well, we'll stick to the cafe and just chat to people. It was still made the night, but
that's cool.
I just like doing different things and doing different projects, and I like to compose my own music, which I've done for for the Spookanori group, I have my own version of Silent Night for the Christmas Eve live that I'm doing.
Wow.
And I've called it Silent Fright.
There you go.
I like that.
And it is a spooky version of Silent Night. And it is
Yeah.
quite spooky.
Wow.
To the point where Ellen, my partner, said, I don't like that.
Really?
And I went, in a good way or a bad way? And she said, no, I just don't like that because of the little giggle at the end. There is a little child, the typical child giggle right at the end of the song.
Mm.
And she said that freaks her out. You just hear that little giggle as it fades out. And I'm like, well, it's mission accomplished then, isn't it? Because that's the whole idea.
I wonder if that's something that she's heard as a, when she was younger, maybe something that happened to her that, you get that memory.
It's possible, but then it's also, I think, because of how it's been put into the song and the fact that the song itself, I've composed it, sort of recomposed it in such a way using different instruments, different sounds than what the normal would have been, so that I've managed to make it sound quite spooky and scary.
Wow.
And so for the minute and a half, 2 minutes, you've got this Silent Fright song going that is putting you into this mindset that something spooky's coming.
Yeah.
And then right at the end, you just get this little girl go, and it fades off. And she's like, no, don't like it. Don't like it.
Ooh. Wow. That's spooky.
So, but I mean, I enjoy doing things like that. I've always been, I've always been creative. I'm good at drawing and painting as well. So, things like that for me, I just, every now and then, I'll just have a mad moment and I'll just go and draw something. And my mum, yes, Nicola, I did that. The Silent Fright song is now the theme tune for the Christmas Eve live. So Eric will be able to hear it for the first time this year.
Cool. Yeah, because I want to. There's a lot of things I got to do when I get over that way. A lot of things. I mean, I'm going to be spending all the rest of my life exploring Scotland and England. So,
I think that's pretty much the same for for a lot of people like us over here. We're probably thinking the same about America. The amount of places we'd like to visit when we go over to America. And obviously with the States, you're so spread out because you've got so much more land.
Yeah.
We're all compact. So it's for you and Rita, it wouldn't be so bad to get from one place to the other and to the other. Yeah. But come over to yours and it would be like, oh, well, if we want to go from here to here, we need to do a 3-day drive. And you're like, 3-day drive? We'd never do that here.
Yeah, 3-day drives, 4-day drives. I think to go back towards my old home from here, it takes about 5 hours.
Excuse me. Whoa. That's better.
Don't have a heart attack on air, please.
I just choked on a spaghetti hoop. Oh, it was lodged at the back of my throat.
What?
Wait, guess what?
It's better.
I blame
Heinz.
I'm getting my surgery on my knee on the 13th of December.
I think you saw that already. Yeah.
Surgery on your knee on the 13th of December?
Yep. Next week.
Is that going to be straight in and straight out?
Yes.
Well, I hope that all goes well. My mum had knee, I think it was knee replacement.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, my mum had a knee replacement a couple of months back. Wow. Be prepared for a lot of pain.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. But you just have to bear through with it because it'll be worth it.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you, what is your scariest experience out on investigating?
Scariest experience.
Thanks, Sarah.
To be honest, I don't think my scariest experience isn't so much the paranormal side of it. I think, yeah, I'm going to have to go with that.
Okay.
My scariest experience whilst out investigating wasn't even down to the paranormal,
Oh, wow.
but it was fear for the safety of my colleagues. I've been in so many situations where something has happened, but rather than be scared of it, I've sort of relished in what's happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, that is something I wanted to happen. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Can you do it again? And I've wanted it to happen again. And it may have or may not have happened again, but it still was pretty good. But we had a situation where I was filming for Truth Beyond Paranormal, and we went to an old residential home, and basically the company that owned the old buildings, all they'd done was rebuilt the old people's home next door, and they'd left the old building still standing. So they still had an old Arga cooker in the kitchen. They'd got an old swimming pool which they'd covered up, an indoor swimming pool which they'd covered up, and various outbuildings. But they never really fenced the area off, so people were still able to walk in and out as they pleased.
Wow.
And during the one of the lockdowns that we had, where we were in a tier system, so we were still able to travel within a certain area, we went and visited this residential home, and we went in, and there's a red ghost just went past.
I saw that. Yeah.
Wave. Oh, that's clever. Hi, ghost.
Hi, Ellen.
I hear her, but I don't
That was
see
Rita in the background.
her. Oh, hi.
We got to the sort of like the back of the buildings, and there was like a dining hall, and we were walking in there, and I could hear something up the stairs, and I'm saying to everybody, "Oh no, we're going to be careful." And she went, "What?" I said, "There's people upstairs." And our director Sam, she was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "We don't know who it is. We don't know what sort of condition they're in or what sort of state they're in. We need to know who they are and what they're doing there first before we go any further." Because we'd already seek permission from the owners to go in there. So as far as we were concerned, we were the only people supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So I said to our director Sam, I said, "We'll back off a little bit, and sort of so that if all hell breaks loose, we can remove ourselves from the situation quickly."
Yeah.
So she's like, right. So we came out of this sort of dining room, stood at the back door, and then all of a sudden you see these torchlights coming downstairs through this doorway. And I went, "They're coming down. So we need to come outside completely and sort of step to one side into the sidings so they can't see us." And it was two lads came down, had come down the stairs through the dining room and out this back door, and they saw us straight away.
Wow.
And they were completely off their trolley.
Really?
Whatever they were taking, they were stoned out of their heads. And
Jeez.
they were coming out with all sorts. And he was saying that his mum used to be a patient there. And I'm thinking, you only look about 16, 17, and this place has been shut down for 10 years. So it's a residential home for old people. So unless your mum was sort of the world's, the world's oldest, the lady that give birth at the oldest age, I don't know how an old lady would be in a residential home and give birth to a baby. I don't know. Because I think it's 50, like mid 50s is the oldest anybody's ever given birth.
Yeah, 57, I think.
So,
Yeah.
it seemed a bit far fetched to me, but he kept saying about, we'll come back, we'll do this and we'll do that. And I'm like, Sam, we can't allow this. because if we can't go into the building knowing that they could come back at any time, they could throw stuff at us. They know this building better than we do because they knew where they were. They were local. They were local lads. So I said to Sam, I think personally, our best bet is to back off completely and come back another time. And luckily, it was a mutual agreement. Everybody all agreed. We took a vote on it, and everybody all agreed with me. And good evening, Bev. It was a good call because these lads just vanished. We don't know where they went, and we think they were hiding somewhere to go back. But we did go back eventually. I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks later, and we went into the building, and we went up the stairwell, and there was a door that was nailed shut.
Yeah.
And it was very crudely nailed shut. It wasn't nailed shut professionally or sealed professionally. It was just nailed shut. And we reckon by these lads, and that was because there was something in that room that they didn't want anybody else seeing. And it sort of like got us a bit worried a little bit. And then as we're standing in this hallway and we're just starting to film the introduction to the show, and all of a sudden we heard this, hello, is there anybody there? And we thought, oh, what's this now?
Probably next week.
Essex Police, can you please come down? And we're like, oh, seriously? So we went from one extreme to the other. We'd literally gone from being worried for our own safety because these two lads were sort of stalking us and being around this place to one where the police had turned up. Even though we'd got permission to be there, the management staff hadn't told the night staff that we were going to be there.
Yeah, he's around, but he's on live.
So when they saw our torches, they phoned the police.
Oh, wow.
So, of course, the police turned up, wanted to know what we were doing there. So we're just like, okay. But we ended up leaving again. And in the end, we just said, you know what, we're not going to bother filming here because it's twice we've been there now. And each time we've gone there, there's been an issue. We go back a third time, we're going to have the same problem again.
Wow.
And
So does that happen a lot? Like at different places? Like,
say again.
Does that happen a lot when you go out and investigate abandoned buildings?
I don't like going to abandoned buildings if I can help it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of urbexers. They like going around and they see a building that's been sort of derelict, and they go in there and start. But the problem is, my insurance doesn't cover us if we go into an abandoned building and I fall down the stairs and break my leg.
Yeah.
And I said that to Sam, our director. I said, look, I'm not happy putting my insurance in the throw if we're going to go into abandoned buildings where my insurance will be null and void. So we always went to places that we had to get permission from. So the only one that I had a question about was Three Bridge Mill, where we filmed earlier on this year. We went there, or the team went there 3 times over the course of 6 months. And we had permission each time to go in there. And we got some really, really good results. It was just the last time we went down there, there was a serious question mark over to whether they knew whether we were allowed to be there or not.
Stuffing.
That raised the questions.
But
but
stuffing.
I try my best not to go urbexing if I can help it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it is depending on where the location is, because sometimes you can go to a location and you will hear a lot of noises from nearby. One location near me, Harrods Redoubt Fort, it's right in the middle of a housing estate.
Oh, wow.
There's houses literally surrounds the entire fort. And so usually between midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning, you can hear people coming out of the pubs and the nightclubs and walking home.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
And a lot of the time they're screaming and shouting and singing and
Yeah.
being
Okay.
silly. And you're just like, well, we'll stay indoors down
Okay.
here because the sound doesn't get down so much.
Goodbye.
But you can still hear them.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But no, I think 9 times out of 10, the most scariest experiences have all been man-made in the first place.
Yeah.
Paranormal wise, I don't scare very easily.
Mm.
Ooh.
You know, if I don't like a situation, I won't go into it.
Mm.
And I do the same when I go into a building. I get the feeling of whether there's something good or bad there.
Yeah.
And if I'm not too happy with what energy is in there, I'll walk out. I'll go, no, I'm not doing that one.
Wow.
And I'll walk away from it and I'll go somewhere else.
You need that one.
Annette investigated a cattle shed and the cows were still in it and they weren't happy. So they chased
Yeah,
it.
I can imagine.
We'll probably kick you.
Mm.
They all went, move. Move.
There you go.
So
I don't know. I've seen some of my friends seem to attract animals when they go out and investigate. Especially in the Highlands, a lot of cows like Ryan O'Neill. Which is really funny half the time, but
I've only ever known of 3 animals since I've ever been paranormal investigating. I've only ever known of 3 spirit animals. One of them was a rabbit, one was a cat, one was a dog.
wow. Wonder why.
And it's weird. It's weird to think of a spirit of a rabbit.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
when I was younger, I had a rabbit called Bright Eyes
wow.
from the film Watership Down.
Mm-hmm.
I named my rabbit Bright Eyes,
Wow.
and he died. Obviously, eventually, he was probably the oldest rabbit in existence. He outlived all my sister's rabbits. But for ages, I kept saying to me, Mum, I can see him. He's in the garden. Look, he's over by the fence. And at night time, because we'd allow him to come into the house,
Yeah.
and I'd go, he's just hopped across the landing, or he's just hopped across my bedroom floor.
Wow.
I could see him all the time. You know, it's weird. I shouldn't really be able to see him, but I did. I could see him clear as day.
Well,
And he definitely worked with us.
Yeah. I noticed that some people are on that same vibrational wavelength, you know, where they could see certain things and then not see certain things. So
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I experienced with my grandfather after he was killed. For about 6 months, he was coming into my room every night to make sure I was okay, and I was having full-blown conversations with him. And then after about 6 months, he'd gone. And when I spoke to someone at my nan's church about it, they turned around and said he was making sure you were okay.
Yeah.
Because I was closer to my granddad at that particular time. I was closer to my granddad than any other member of my family, including my mum and dad.
Wow.
And he was killed. And so I never got, I think it was about 4 days before he got killed was the last time I saw him.
Wow.
To actually speak to him. So, and I was only about 5 or 6 at the time.
Really? Wow.
And my granddad taught me how to read. I was reading before I actually started school.
Oh, wow.
So if it wasn't for my granddad, maybe that's what sort of gave me that slight advantage into writing my stories now. Because if it wasn't for him teaching me to read so early on, I wouldn't have exhausted all the books in the school library.
Yeah.
I literally, they ran out of books in the classroom. They'd run out of books for me to read. So I ended up having to go into the library and taking books out of there instead because I'd read them all. So there was this connection between me and my granddad. And so when he'd gone, that hurt really badly and I couldn't stop crying. And I missed him. I still do.
Yeah.
But So a lot of people were saying it's because you miss him, your brain is telling you that he's visiting you. And everybody was saying the same thing until somebody turned around and said, write down the conversations he has with his granddad.
Yeah.
And my mum was a bit skeptical to start off with. So she asked why that would be so important. And it turns out that from a psychiatrist's point of view, when somebody has an imaginary friend or is dreaming speaking to somebody, the conversation is very staggered.
Yep.
The questions and answers are very short and sweet. They're not in relation to each other. So you could have, I don't know, what time is the bus from here to Kentucky? You get the answer, and then the next question that comes in straight after that is, what have we had for dinner?
Huh. Wow.
Totally unrelated to the previous question.
Yeah.
And that would be how the conversation would run. It would just be a series of questions and answers, and that would be it. So my mum wrote down the conversations over a course of 4 or 5 nights. And by what I was doing was actually having a full-blown conversation with someone that was physically there.
Wow.
I was asking a question, getting an answer, asking a question according to that answer, getting another answer, then asking another question that was according to the answers from the previous 2 questions.
Wow.
So there was a constant conversation going, and it would go for about half an hour. And it would always end up with, how's your mum and dad doing? How's Rachel doing? My sister. How's your nana doing? And then it would end good night, and that would be it.
Wow.
You know, and the psychiatrist was like, he's having a full-blown conversation with someone, which isn't the normal sort of thing to do.
Yeah, not with the pretend, not with the imaginary friend, like you said. It's a lot different, feeling, conversation wise, and longer. You know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, your imaginary friend, or if you're dreaming, could last. The actual speaking side of things could last for ages, but it's the content that changes.
Yep.
So you could have this conversation for 2 hours during your sleep, but that conversation would be with millions of different people throughout your dream, and it would be completely broken up, and it would be all over the place, and some of it wouldn't make sense. But apparently the conversations I was having with my granddad made 100% sense, and my mum couldn't make sense of it.
Wow.
And it turned out that this lady from my nan's church had said that's because he's actually visiting, and he's actually checking to make sure he's all right.
Yeah.
Once he's satisfied, he will stop visiting, but he'll still be looking over him. But he will still visit. And I still think so now. My mum likes to think that he's definitely watching over me because of incidences that have happened so far in my life that technically should have killed me and hasn't.
Wow.
And she reckons my granddad's had a hand in that.
I can imagine.
So he's like, well, he's probably still looking over me, but he's probably got my nan to deal with at the moment. She's probably up there moaning at him going, no, don't you get involved. You leave him to it.
That's funny.
But it is what it is.
Oh, God.
So,
Don't do that. Yawning.
So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, but I can't think of any. I think I wouldn't say it was the scariest. I would say it was funny though. Was my incident at Harrods Redoubt Fort when I had a mannequin dummy thrown at me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It certainly was scary for the investigator that was with me. In fact, it was that scary for her. She quit doing paranormal investigations.
Wow.
And I think at that point she'd been out investigating for about 10 years. So she was quite experienced in investigating and knew what to do. But I think that experience had shook her that much that she said, I can't be doing this anymore. And she quit.
Wow.
And all it was like a prison cell that was set up as it would have looked during World War II.
Mm.
And again, this is Harwich Redoubt Fort in Harwich near me. During World War II, it was used as an anti-aircraft battery.
Oh, wow.
And it would also be used to house any German pilots or any German prisoners from planes that had been shot down. And they would be kept there for a day or two until the army could come along and take them to the POW camps.
Wow.
And so we'd gone in there investigating. There was a team of 3 people in, there was a row of 3 cells. And there was a team of 3 people in the bottom cell. And we were in the second cell, which I felt attracted to.
Mm.
And for some unknown reason, I had the name Klaus, kept coming through to me all the time.
Wow.
So I kept saying, it's the spirit of Klaus is in here. So we've gone in there, and this room is set up as it was during World War II. So there was this table, there was an old metal bowl, a metal mug, knife and fork, there's a Bible, the old style bed that was chained to the wall that would flip down with the itchy blankets. The horrible itchy blankets, I hated them. And then standing to the side of the bed would be a mannequin.
Mm.
And in each of the cells, it was dressed up differently. But in our cell, it was dressed up as a German navigator or pilot. So he was wearing the full German pilot's outfit.
Really?
And we'd set up a trigger object on the bed. And that was one of those motion sensor ones. And it was like a little boxing ring. So it was a little square boxing ring with a red light on each corner. And then you put the ball in the middle and set the alarm on it.
Oh, wow.
And then the idea was you ask spirit for the ball to move. If the ball moved, the alarm would go off. So a bit more of a bulkier version of a cat ball, really.
Yeah.
So we've set this up, and these red lights, they were doing my head in. I didn't like it, but these lights kept flashing away. And Claire, the other investigator, was sitting to my left, and I was standing in the doorway of the cell, which is about 12 foot away from the bed where the dummy was. So I'm standing there, she's sitting down in the chair, and she kept looking, and she didn't look to me, and she went, do you know what, Wayne? She said, every time that red light flashes, that mannequin's moving. So I'm like, really? So I'm standing there, I'm squinting away, I'm really sort of concentrating. And if I could do telekinesis, I'd have probably moved the dummy myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm straining, I'm really struggling to see it moving. And I'm like, no, it's not moving. I said, but something doesn't feel right. The atmosphere in here is wrong. Something is going to happen. And as I said the word happen, it did.
Oh, wow.
This mannequin literally just left the ground, and it must have cleared a foot and a half off the ground and came straight at me, 12 foot across the room. I went, oh my God, I've grabbed it because it's heading straight for my head. So I've grabbed it, gone, oh my God, and started laughing. No apparent reason, just started laughing. Poor Claire, she went, fuck that, I'm not here for this, and boom, she was gone.
Jeez.
She got up out of her chair, she shot out the prison cell, off down the corridor and straight out into the courtyard.
Wow.
I'm like, would someone like to help me? Because by this time, because I'm now holding this dummy, the head's fallen off and onto the floor. So the beret that this pilot was wearing is now on the floor with the head. I've got my foot on top of it to stop it from rolling about. I'm like, someone like to come and help me, please. team from the next cell down goes, "Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on?" So the mannequin's just thrown at me across the room. They're like, "Oh my God, oh, we caught some of it on camera."
Wow.
So we played it back. And as they're in their cell, they're doing dowsing rods.
Yeah.
And they're asking the questions too. For a yes answer, can you open the rods? For a no answer, can you cross them over? So they stood there and said, if there are any spirits in this prison block with us, can you open the rods for us? And as the rods opened up, you heard Claire go, "Fuck that, I'm not here for this." And they turned. And as they turned to look down the corridor, you see her run out the cell, run out the door, and this little white light followed her down and into the courtyard.
Oh.
And then they came in to me holding the mannequin dummy. And I'm like, that was amazing. It was, I don't know, it's like a train spotter spotting the world's rarest train just by off chance.
Yeah.
The level of excitement, I literally could have wet myself in excitement because it was something I've always wanted to have happen.
Yeah.
And now it finally has. And then I'm like, I so want it to do it again. But will it ever do it again?
I don't know.
And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And then I found out a couple of years later that because of that incident, Claire had quit doing paranormal investigations.
Wow.
But then she went and worked in one of Essex's most haunted manor houses. So I don't understand the relevance of that one.
Yeah. I don't
quit doing paranormal investigating and then go and work in a haunted manor house.
Yeah, I know. What's the theory behind that?
Yeah. But there is, as Sarah said, there is a video. I think it's a GC UK Southeast. But I think they have removed the video simply because of little old moi.
Oh, no.
They had a bit of a disagreement with me because a certain TV show approached me to work with them and they didn't like it. And they threw the rattle out the pram because I got chose over them and they didn't like it. So they've probably removed it now. But all I can say is it was an experience. There was the one witness who works in South Essex in the haunted manor, Rochford Hall, and I did still speak to the other witness that witnessed them running out the corridor, and she was the one that was actually holding the camera at the time.
Cheers.
So I'm lucky that I still am able to contact two other people that were actually there on the night. But it was one hell of an experience, and I really wish it would happen again. But it won't happen again at that location because as a result of it happening, they tied the dummy to the wall.
Oh, really? Wow.
So he physically cannot move anymore. And that's because they got security cameras on there.
Oh, wow.
They had security cameras in each of the cell blocks. They have the security cameras. And I kept meaning to ask them for years after it happened. I kept saying, I've got to ask them if they've got the footage of that. And then eventually I spoke to them about 3 years ago, and they turned around and said, yes, we have got the footage of it. That's why we tied him to the wall.
Jeez.
I'm like, oh, right. So you've gone through the footage. And I said, why did you go through the footage then? She said, we noticed the dummy wasn't in the same position. I put the dummy back where I thought was the right position, but it wasn't.
Oh,
so when they came in the following day to open up, the dummy was in a different place. So they checked the CCTV cameras, and they said, literally, you get to, I think they said it was about 25 minutes past midnight. You see the dummy literally just leave where it is and just go straight towards the bottom of the screen, which is where I'm standing under the doorway. And they said, we've had to tie him back so it don't happen again.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God. We just thought he fell over.
You know, it's stuff like that.
They are quite old, so you know, I'm like, yeah, your faculties probably aren't quite 100%.
Yeah. Well, stuff like that amazes me. It's like, okay, well, I want that to happen again. But you know, I'm more of a detailed type of person. Like, did it like just lift up and fly at you? Was it literally thrown like a quick toss? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't have been a quick toss. It was the best part of 12 feet away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just under 6 foot tall. So it's 2 lengths of me across a room.
Wow.
And it literally left a foot and a half off the floor. So whatever it was behind it and literally had pushed it up at speed so that it would able to get across the room at me. But when I think about it and I look back at it, it was almost like slow motion.
Yeah.
Everything just slowed down because all I'd got was this red flashing light going. But no sooner had it got darker again, it lit up again. So I was, in a way, it was like being blinded with this red light. And all I got was this mannequin dummy getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it was right on top of me. And I went, oh, shit. Grabbed it.
Serious.
And that was it. And I couldn't remember nothing else because the head then fell off. And I'm having to put my foot on it to stop it rolling about the floor. And the people that own Harwich Redoubt Fort are very particular. And they've now, because of other people, whether it's paranormal teams or guests during the day, have been marking the walls.
Oh.
And unfortunately, they do the typical thing. They scratch, Michael was here, 23. And it's the original paintwork on that wall from World War II.
Yeah.
And it's getting ruined. And so, and I don't blame them for doing it. As a result, the first 2 most intact cells have been sealed off now.
Oh, really?
Everything's been put in place as it should be. And the doors have been locked. And they've put steps in front of the door so that the children can actually look up and see inside.
Wow.
And see how it was set up. But it's just solely now to protect the walls that are in there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
And
I don't like it. Yeah, go ahead. I don't like the fact that people like in castles, you know, especially over there and in Scotland, just graffiti the walls. I mean, come on, that's heritage. Don't do that crap.
I think it's because we've got, although I would say every generation has got them, but you've got a contingency part of every generation that can give us stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that, oh, well, I'm going to reject society. I'm going to reject rule. I'm going to reject this, reject that. So this is my statement. And they'll go,
yeah.
and they ruin things for other people. And I think it's disgusting. I hate seeing graffiti.
Yeah.
I can't stand it. Even Banksy, the artist, where he goes round and he sprays stuff up on the walls on people's houses.
Yeah.
I personally think if I'd have caught him painting one of them on my walls, I'd smack his head in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too happy about him painting stuff because next minute, you know, some art freak has come along and gone, oh, I'll give you £1.5 million if I can take your wall away.
Yeah.
No, you can't take my wall away. That's part of my house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it is disrespectful, and it is when you get other groups as well. Like you get paranormal teams that go to Pluckley Village in Kent.
Yeah,
there was a time where the locals and the local council at Pluckley did not want people down there.
mm.
Yet it's the most haunted village in England. And you know,
Wow.
you could go to the pubs there, you could go down to Pluckley Woods, the Screaming Woods, the areas in Pluckley where there is a lot of activity, but the locals had had enough and they were putting tripwires up in the woods.
Wow.
And they ended up with a group of locals going around the following morning after investigation teams had been there, having to clear up all the rubbish.
Oh, jeez.
Because certain groups were going around leaving rubbish behind and it'd be all over the place.
Yeah.
And a lot of a couple of the places, I know one of the pubs at one point had said, we won't have investigation teams if this keeps on going. And that following weekend after they made that announcement, a team went down there, camped in the woods. One group had had a fire that got a little bit out of control, and they had to run to a stream to get loads of water to put the fire out. The fire brigade and the police were called, and they said, it was all an accident. They moved to a different area of the woods. They continued making a mess.
Oh, jeez.
And they'd been in one of the pubs, and they boasted about what had happened. And the landlord just turned around and he literally kicked them out. He said, "You're not investigating in here, out you go." And he kicked them out, and he said, "I'm not having any more paranormal investigation teams in here."
Mm-hmm.
And it started spreading throughout the whole village as a result. And that was all because of a particular team that weren't doing things by the book.
Yeah.
They weren't even a registered company.
Oh.
And they were taking money off of people, getting them to sign waivers so that if anything happened to them while they were out in the woods or in a certain area, they wouldn't hold the team responsible.
Huh.
But all it was a group of friends that had written out a non-disclosure form and, took their money.
Yeah.
And they're charging like £30, £40 a time. And you get, 20, 30 guests. They've made themselves quite a lot of money.
I can imagine.
And there's no one to hold them responsible.
Yeah.
And it's wrong, but I think it's, it upsets legitimate teams and it ruins it for the people that want to go and investigate them.
Yeah, especially if you're looking for, if you're doing it for the right reasons and the real reasons, instead of just going out and screwing around.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of times I've gone into, we've got a local wood just around the back of mine. And the amount of times where I'd gone down there in the middle of the night and I've gone to there's picnic tables in the middle of our woods. And I'd just go and sit there. And I'd listen to the wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
But I would hear other things. I would hear twigs snapping and things like that. And because you're sitting there, your imagination starts running wild. Mm-hmm. What's that? What made that? Was that a big, Wivenhoe Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Oh, look, we've got the East of England Bigfoots coming up towards me. Or is that a panther? Or is it this? Is it that? Is an alien going to pop down and say hello or something like that? Your mind starts playing tricks on you left, right, and centre. But then you also get the idiots that go in there in the middle of the night, think that they're being funny. And you just for years as a child, no one ventured into our woods at night time.
Oh, wow.
We had it had a bit of a name for itself locally. We called it the Dark Woods, and that was because Wivenhoe, the town I live in, is on a hill. Yeah. And the area I'm in was built in the 70s. So the further downhill towards the River Colne in Essex gets, it gets older. So you get to the areas of Wivenhoe that are hundreds of years old. Oh. And it's the same with the woodland. It starts off in the newer part of Wivenhoe and goes right the way downhill into the old part. And the old part was what we called the Dark Woods. Yeah. No one went in there at night time. People didn't like going in there during the daytime because it wasn't daytime when you went in there. Yeah. It was pitch black. Wow. The foliage and the ceiling of the trees was that dense. Sunlight couldn't get through. Wow. So it was almost like it was nighttime in there, and everybody you'd walk through and you couldn't see if anybody was there. The only time you knew that it was still daytime or relatively near was when a train went past. Wow. And you'd get the sparks coming off the electric cables overhead. And that was it. And then you'd come out at the bottom into the park and it would be daylight again. Wow. But since we had the hurricane in 86 or 87, a lot of the trees fell down
Oh, okay.
And so now we've lost the dark woods, and it's not so dark in there anymore.
Wow.
But it makes it a little more. But go down there at night, and the amount of people you could scare. You could take a group of people down there at night time, and you could see one faint light and say, "Oh, that's the tramp. You have to be careful of him. He's there over by his fireplace." And that automatically scared people. Then
Really?
you would hear maybe a muntjac deer, foraging around in the undergrowth, and everybody they get scared and they go, "What's that? What's that?" Oh, that could be the troll from the bridge just down there. You put that thought in their head, and they go, "Oh, I don't like that. Oh, so there's people walking around here that aren't very nice."
Yeah.
Oh, you have to be careful at night time. You never know what's down here. This is the dark woods after all.
Jeez.
And it did scare people, and so nobody would go in there. And even up at the top part of the woods, when it was night time, but you could still see lights through the foliage. It was still fairly light in there.
Yeah.
People still were reluctant to go in, and it was all because the name that was given to it when it was originally the dark woods.
Wow.
It's quite amusing, really. But again, things like that can give you sort of like the stories you need to write a book.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's where I get all my book ideas from, or either from my own personal experiences or from the weird, nutty dreams that I get when I'm asleep.
Yeah, can imagine. Well, we've hit the hour mark, so I think we should end it here. I want everybody to thank you for joining us, and have a good night.
Bye.